Every struggle, every achievement, every tragedy, every dire moment and challenge you have ever faced has brought you to this moment, right here, right now. And not only have you arrived here, but you have arrived carrying all the wisdom, resilience and grit those moments have instilled within you. Everything you have endured in your life has built you up, even if at first it tore you down. Some of the strongest structures in history were built upon ruins. The same is true for you. Life may have broken you at times, tested you, pushed you to your limits, but from those very ashes you rebuilt, stronger than before. Sometimes we only find out what we're made of when the world forces us to strip away what we are not. No matter what you endured, you kept going, and you still continue to keep going. Through disappointment, rejection, pain, failure, and uncertainty, you move forward. The trials of life are not over, they never truly are. Life is not about the absence of hardship, but about how we face it. As Marcus Aurelius wisely reminded himself, we face the trials of each day with the same internal weapons, our reason, our character, and our courage. These are tools we polish daily, not just for the moment we're in, but for the battles ahead. They are both our sword and our shield. Sometimes, when the noise gets loud, when the path ahead seems foggy, we need to step back, to reset, to restart, to refocus. Life may not always offer clarity or comfort, and at times it can feel like we are being stripped of opportunity, forced backward into darkness. But every setback holds within it the seed of movement, and in time, you always find the strength to push forward. You emerge not only more resilient, but with deeper understanding and unwavering conviction. And that, my friend, is how character is built. That is how you strengthen the walls of your inner fortress, through every test, every stumble, every rise again. The person you are today stands as a living monument to that resilience. If someone were to ask you if you are mentally strong, you might say yes, perhaps with a smile, or perhaps with a sigh. But let me tell you something profound and absolute. You are much stronger than you think, stronger than you have ever fully realized. Within you lies a vast, untapped strength, a well so deep in your mind, your heart, and your soul that it cannot be mapped, it cannot be seen in totality. It is infinite. It is the hidden, innate force that carries you through every hardship, every trial, and every moment when giving up felt easier than pushing forward. This strength cannot always be measured or neatly defined. It is the force that rises up within you in silence when no one is watching. It's the power that compels you to keep standing, to keep trying, to keep believing when everything around you falls apart. And the truth is, it will always be with you. You do not need to uncover all of it. You simply need to remember it's there. As long as you know in the deepest part of yourself that you hold a strength greater than any storm, you will never truly be defeated. With that realization, calm, unshakable and quiet, you become unbreakable, you become unstoppable. And as long as you keep going, keep growing, keep choosing progress over pause, you will thrive, not just survive, but thrive in the face of everything. In the chapters ahead, we will walk step by step through the principles and practices that unlock this hidden strength, your quiet power that waits beneath fear, fatigue, and doubt. This is not theoretical. This is practical philosophy. It is how you train your thoughts to serve you, not sabotage you. It is how you turn pain into purpose and challenge into clarity. Together, we'll light the path to rediscover what has always been yours, the unshakable strength within. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Furnace of Adversity. There is an ancient wisdom in understanding that adversity is not our enemy. The Stoics believed that difficulty is not something to fear or avoid, but something to invite into the arena of growth. It is not comfort that breeds greatness, It is pressure, it is trial, it is discomfort. Epictetus, born into slavery and suffering, taught that it is not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. We are not disturbed by the chains, but by the belief that those chains have power over our soul. And once you break free from that illusion, the shackles fall away. Adversity has always been the crucible where the strongest characters are formed. Hardship is the furnace that forges strength, and every great soul has been tempered by its flame. Think about your own life. Can you name a single moment of growth that came without some form of tension or strain? Has anything truly valuable been handed to you without resistance? When you were under pressure, when your world seemed to collapse around you, those were not moments of defeat, they were defining moments. It was in those trials that your inner strength, your raw will to endure, to adapt, to fight, emerged not because you planned it, but because life demanded it. Even now, when you look back, you'll realize that what once felt like breaking points were in fact crucial turning points. They were not interruptions to your story. They were the story. Those painful, chaotic moments were chapters where the ink of your character was written in sweat, tears, and persistence. They weren't episodes to be erased. They were the foundation. These weren't moments to regret. They were the very trials that refined you, honed you, carved depth into your spirit, and pulled greatness from your core. The Stoics knew that to live is to suffer, and to suffer is to evolve. They did not chase a life without suffering. They pursued the inner clarity to harness it, to transform it, to rise through it. Pain, they believed, wasn't just a test. It was a signal, a teacher, a purifier. Each hardship becomes a reflection of what you still need to strengthen, but also a mirror of how far you've already come. You see, suffering uncovers what is soft and false and fragile within us, so that we may replace it with something solid, something lasting. The Stoics understood this well. When Epictetus was beaten by his master, he calmly told him, "If you keep doing that, you'll break my leg." When the bone snapped, he simply said, "There, I told you so." What kind of soul can remain so unmoved by pain? One who has mastered the storm inside. In practicing Stoicism, we don't pray for peace in the skies. We prepare ourselves to be the calm within the storm. We don't deny the inevitability of pain. We embrace it as part of the terrain of life. We ask not for easier paths, but for stronger feet. We do not run from pain. We walk into it with dignity, with grace, with grit. It is not avoidance that builds us, but engagement. We meet difficulty head-on, not because we enjoy the struggle, but because we know it's the way through. We become stronger through it. When you stand in the fire long enough, your skin toughens, your spirit hardens, and something sacred begins to emerge. Each hardship becomes a fire, not to consume you, but to reveal the steel within. That fire doesn't always blaze with fury. Sometimes it's a slow burn that lingers for months or even years. But each moment of discomfort, each wave of fear, every ounce of resistance you push through, they all contribute to your shaping. The pressure is not to break you, but to refine you, to melt away what is unnecessary, and to leave only what is solid, essential, and durable. In that way, adversity is not the villain in your story. It is the sculptor. And you are the sculpture in progress. Each test you encounter is an invitation, not to shrink, but to step forward with greater resolve. It is a chance to act not out of impulse, but out of principle. These trials, though uninvited, are the curriculum of resilience. And the moment you stop viewing them as setbacks and begin seeing them as sacred lessons, something shifts inside. You stop dreading the next challenge and begin preparing for it like a warrior sharpening their sword before dawn. Each difficulty is not just a doorway, it is a threshold to another version of you. The stronger version, the wiser version, The one who emerges on the other side, not just having survived, but having been transformed in some way. These aren't abstract ideas. They are lived truths. Every time you've made it through something you thought might break you, you've deepened the proof of your own strength. Strength is never forged in the silence of comfort. It is always forged in the roaring tension of conflict, of doubt, of discomfort. It's in that dark inner forge, that invisible furnace of the soul, where true endurance is made. And that's where the Stoic warrior within you lives, waiting, watching, ready. Every time life gets hard, they awaken, and they don't complain, they don't retreat. They say, "Good, let's see what I'm made of now." So when the flames rise again, and they will, in ways you can't yet predict, remember who you are. Remember that you have walked through fire before, and every scar you carry is proof of survival, not defeat. You are not just someone passing through the fire. You are someone who has learned to walk inside it with a steady heart. That fire is not your enemy. It is your teacher, your purifier, your unwelcome but necessary companion in growth. It doesn't simply test you, it reveals you. Every time life turns up the heat, it's an opportunity to burn away illusion, to burn away weakness, and uncover the steel that lies beneath. You are being strengthened by it in ways you cannot always see. Even when it feels like you're unraveling, some deeper part of you is knitting itself together with threads of wisdom, threads of deeper resolve. The strength being built in those moments is not loud or showy. It's quiet. It settles into your bones. It settles into your breath. It becomes the way you carry yourself, the way you speak with clarity when others shout with confusion, the way you stand when others fall. It becomes your foundation. And when the smoke clears, when the chaos subsides, and the ashes settle around you like dust returning to the earth, you will rise, not tentatively, not with doubt, but with calm certainty. You will stand taller, taller than before. You will be stronger, stronger in ways you never imagined, sharper, not just in thought, but in will, in intent, in the way you see what matters and what does not. You will not be burned. You will be reborn. From standing in that fire and whispering to yourself, deep within your soul, "I am not burning, I am becoming, I am not breaking, I am being rebuilt, I am being transformed by this fire into something more enduring. I am being sharpened into a person who is harder to shake, clearer in direction, wiser in silence." And in that truth, in that moment of realization, not spoken aloud but carried deep in your chest, you are, without a shadow of a doubt, unbreakable. Not because the fire didn't touch you, but because it couldn't destroy what truly matters. And now you know, it never could. Chapter 2. The Inner Citadel. Marcus Aurelius spoke of the mind as a citadel, a fortress no external event can breach without your consent. This metaphor is not poetic indulgence, it is practical instruction. In a world full of uncertainty, the only thing you truly possess is your ability to control how you think, how you respond, how you act. When everything feels out of control, return to your citadel. This inner sanctuary is not a fantasy. It is the one true place that no one can take from you. It is where your thoughts, your choices, and your responses are forged with care. When the outside world feels as though it's unraveling, when the ground beneath you shakes and familiar structures fall, this is where your real work begins. Because if you guard the gates of your mind, truly guard them, then your strength remains untouched. People can insult you, plans can disintegrate, fortunes can vanish. But your character, your core, if it is maintained daily with clarity and discipline, remains unshakable. This space is not external. It is carved out of discipline, fortified through consistency, and nourished with reflection. We often forget that real power comes from this exact space. It is not flashy. It does not dazzle. It does not shout across the rooftops or chase followers. It is not loud. It does not clamor for attention or seek validation from the world. It is the quiet breath before action, the pause before a reply, the calm center of a storm, the eye where everything stills, where clarity returns and courage is not just found, but sharpened. It is the quiet decision to respond with dignity rather than impulse, to act with principle rather than panic, to think with clarity rather than chaos. These are not dramatic decisions, they are quiet ones, invisible ones, but they are everything. It is in this stillness where strength becomes unshakable. It's the stillness that allows you to respond to hardship with direction instead of drifting. It's what keeps you upright when the world would rather see you crumble. The inner citadel, once built and consistently reinforced, is the last place of retreat when everything else collapses. It is not built with bricks or stone, but with daily decisions. Every time you choose restraint over rage, perspective over panic, endurance over escape, you are laying the foundation. Each choice is a stone, each pause is a mortar, and over time you will find that you have constructed something no storm can breach, the invisible architecture of your soul. A sanctuary no one else can see, but everyone feels when they are in your presence. You will not have to explain your calm, they will feel it. True power isn't something you wear or wield. It doesn't come in titles or trophies. It does not depend on praise or fear. It is not granted by status or stripped by circumstance. It radiates subtly and steadily from the person who knows who they are and refuses to be moved by the world's turbulence. That kind of power, the quiet, immovable kind, is rare. It does not shout. It does not boast. It does not flinch in the face of opinion. It stands still while the world rushes in every direction. It is the calm in a sea of noise. It is the person who chooses silence over ego, purpose over approval, alignment over attention. You can see it in the way someone listens with full presence, not needing to interrupt. You can see it in the way they carry themselves, firm, steady, without needing to dominate, or the way they maintain poise in the middle of chaos while others unravel. You can feel it when a person walks into a room and doesn't need to prove anything. Their energy speaks volumes. Their very being calms the noise. That kind of presence is not inherited. It is not stumbled upon. It is cultivated through failure, through trial, through deep self-awareness and continuous restraint. It is the power of self-command, the ability to keep your footing when everything tries to pull you off balance, the skill to choose your direction when everyone else is chasing distraction. And once cultivated, this strength becomes your greatest asset in a world built on noise, distraction, and fleeting influence. In a time when attention is currency and validation is addictive, the ability to be unmoved is radical. It is strength, not of muscle, but of mind, not of noise, but of presence. Hold it, build it, revisit it daily, strengthen it with your actions, with your boundaries, with your principles. Make it your ritual, make it your root. That is your citadel, that is your foundation, that is the unshakable place within you that cannot be touched by anything outside of you. And from that center, everything you do will begin to change. Chapter 3. The Importance of Voluntary Discomfort. Seneca practiced going without things he loved, not because he wanted to suffer, but because he wanted to remain free. He understood something we tend to overlook in the modern world, that comfort, when left unchecked, becomes a cage. The more we surround ourselves with ease, the less capacity we have for enduring discomfort when it inevitably arrives. By voluntarily engaging in discomfort, Seneca believed we could inoculate ourselves against fear, anxiety, and dependency. If you can endure cold, hunger, rejection, failure on your terms, you are no longer a slave to them. You don't have to go to extremes like Seneca did, but introducing controlled hardship into your daily life builds a kind of invisible armor around your mind. Doing things your mind and body are not used to, such as daily exercise, push-ups, sit-ups, long walks or runs in the rain, cold showers, morning fasting, or digital detoxes, can help build a deeper resilience within you. Each time you choose discomfort intentionally, you shift your identity. You are no longer someone who seeks convenience. You become someone who seeks challenge. These practices do more than toughen your body. They condition your mind to be sharp under pressure, calm under chaos, and flexible under strain. When we intentionally stretch beyond our comforts, we train ourselves for real resilience. You may already do this unknowingly when you push yourself at the gym, fast for clarity or discipline, wake up early to gain extra hours of reflection, or take on a challenge that stretches your limits. These small, voluntary hardships act as rehearsals for life's inevitable tests. So when the storm comes, when plans fall apart, when people let you down, when your own confidence wavers, your mind doesn't flinch. You've practiced. You've put yourself in the fire before. You've already proven to yourself that your strength is greater than your circumstances. And that is the key. Resilience is built daily, not in grand heroic gestures or rare feats of strength, but in the small, often invisible habits of choosing strength over ease. The choices may seem insignificant. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Sit in silence instead of reaching for a distraction. Say no when it's easier to say yes. Show up when you're tired. Speak the truth when it's uncomfortable. These micro decisions accumulate like drops of water cutting stone. They shape not only your posture and your presence, but also the way your mind responds under pressure. Each choice strengthens the wiring in your brain that says, "I do hard things." Each decision becomes a vote cast for the identity you are building, one of discipline, of courage, of intentionality. Over time, they shape not just your habits, but your entire worldview. You become more immune to the pull of comfort. You start seeking discomfort as a form of personal growth. You reframe effort as meaning, resistance as opportunity, difficulty as teacher. These actions may not be witnessed by anyone else, but they are deeply felt within. They carve out a version of you that is less reactive and more deliberate, less shaken by noise and more attuned to purpose, more grounded, more anchored. And each time you choose the hard path deliberately, you leave behind an old version of yourself, the one that avoided, delayed, feared. Instead, you step into your potential. You become the kind of person who acts, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And this is where your strength becomes undeniable, because every act of chosen difficulty is not just an isolated effort. It is a thread in the tapestry of your transformation. Each repetition of resilience, each confrontation with discomfort, becomes a line in the story of your endurance. These aren't just moments. They are bricks in the foundation of an unshakable character. Each challenge you face and embrace deliberately shifts your identity toward power and purpose. Over time, these consistent decisions build a version of you that is not just capable, but commanding. Every one of those lines adds up to a new narrative, one in which you are not the victim of life, but the sculptor of your own destiny. You begin to see your life not as something that happens to you, but something you actively shape. Your setbacks become raw material for construction. Your delays become opportunities for redirection. Your failures become teachers whispering the truth of your potential. Each hardship is no longer a threat, but a tool, a signal to go deeper, a test to prove your commitment. You rewrite the script of who you are becoming. Each choice, however small, becomes a sentence in that new story. And with each day of deliberate difficulty, that story becomes more courageous, more focused, more unflinching. You shift from victim to warrior, from reaction to purpose, from avoidance to courage, from hesitation to action, from convenience to conviction. And in that daily process, layer by layer, choice by choice, you forge a character that is not just prepared for life, but built for it. You no longer bend with every pressure. You become pressure-tested. You become durable. And that durability is not hard and brittle, but supple and strong, ready for anything, unmoved by everything, directed by what truly matters. Chapter 4. The Discipline of Perception. Perception is not truth. Perception is how you interpret what is happening, and it is entirely within your power. This is one of the most liberating insights Stoicism offers. When you realize that you are not your thoughts, but the observer of them, you regain command. What you see as a setback could just as easily be a setup for growth. What you label as failure could be a redirection toward your true path. The Stoics trained themselves to pause before interpreting anything. "Is this bad?" they would ask, "or have I simply decided it is?" Your strength increases when you question your first reaction. That moment of pause, that breath between what happens and how you respond, is the birthplace of your power. Most people skip over it, allowing instinct or emotion to dominate. But this is where your training begins. Pause. Really pause. Ask yourself, what else could this mean? Could this setback be a setup for clarity? Could this conflict reveal something important about your priorities? Could discomfort actually be a guidepost for change? When you begin to explore those questions, you train your mind not just to react, but to choose your response consciously. You develop what the Stoics call the discipline of assent, the ability to decide whether a thought deserves your agreement, your energy, your belief. The more you engage in this reflective practice, the stronger your mental grip becomes. This is not avoidance. It is mastery. It is the difference between being swept away and standing still while the storm rages around you. This space between stimulus and response is not just where strength lives. It's where identity is shaped. It's where growth becomes possible. It's where wisdom enters, quietly, without fanfare. You do not have to accept every thought that enters your mind. You are not obligated to follow every feeling. Instead, you are invited to observe, evaluate, and decide. You can step back. You can shift perspective. You can reframe. And each time you do, you reclaim your authority over the moment. You recenter on your values. You rise above the noise, not once, but again and again, until this pause becomes part of who you are. Until strength is no longer something you summon, it is something you are, one mindful moment at a time. Chapter 5. Control and Commitment. The Stoics divided life into two categories: what we can control and what we cannot. It seems simple, yet this principle holds transformative power. If you waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable, other people, outcomes, opinions, you drain yourself. But when you focus entirely on your own actions, your own values, your own mind, your power compounds. This is not passivity. It's commitment to what matters. When you let go of the noise and zero in on what you can influence, your strength is no longer diffused. It becomes focused. You stop trying to win every argument and start trying to master yourself. You realize that energy spent on proving you're right can often be better used fortifying who you are. Every moment spent arguing over opinions is a moment lost in building your inner resolve. Arguments fade, opinions shift, people change their minds, and sometimes they don't. But your inner mastery, your ability to remain calm, to stay aligned, to act according to principle, will always carry further weight. It will be what speaks on your behalf when words are no longer enough. It's not about silence for the sake of avoiding conflict, but silence that stems from clarity, from the strength to choose what is worthy of your response and what is not. when you no longer need to win every external battle, you begin winning the most important internal ones, those that determine the shape of your future self. You are not responsible for the world. You are not responsible for fixing every flaw, correcting every injustice, or persuading every person. That burden is not yours to carry. What you are responsible for, fully and completely, is how you show up in it. You are the steward of your thoughts, your choices, your energy. You are the guardian of your values, the architect of your character. And character is not built in theory. It is constructed in the fire of repeated action. Every morning you rise, every decision you make, every value you live instead of merely speak about, those are the beams of your inner structure. And the more you align your daily actions with this truth, the more grounded, resilient, and powerful you become. You waste less energy trying to control the uncontrollable. You feel more focused because you're no longer scattered by distractions. You stand with more confidence, more calm, because you are centered in yourself rather than swept by what is outside of you. You are stronger than you think, not by altering the chaos outside, but by commanding the clarity inside, not by controlling the world, but by leading yourself. This is where your true power lies, not in control over others, but in command of yourself. The part of the world that is always yours, the internal landscape of your reason, your actions, your will, is where transformation lives. And when you master that, when you learn to navigate life from that center, you bring something rare into the world: stability, strength, and unshakable purpose. You become the lighthouse in the storm, not the ship tossed by every wave. That, above all else, is the mark of someone who is truly free. Chapter 6. Stillness is strength. In a world where noise is constant and motion is endless, stillness becomes an act of rebellion and of power. The Stoics knew this deeply. Stillness to them was not stagnation, but discipline. It was the deliberate calm one cultivates in the midst of chaos, the focused pause before action. Marcus Aurelius, burdened by the weight of empire, wrote quietly to himself about silence, clarity, and composure, not because he was idle, but because he knew that from stillness comes right action. Stillness is where clarity is born. It is where you begin to hear your own voice, not the voice of fear, of others, or of society's pressure, but your own deep knowing. And that voice is wise, but it only speaks when you give it room to breathe. The one who can remain still, unmoved in the storm, is the one who can act with precision and confidence when the time comes. This is the lesson of the warrior who watches carefully before striking, the philosopher who listens before speaking, the leader who reflects before deciding. How do you cultivate stillness? You remove what is unnecessary. You unplug from chaos. You sit with your thoughts instead of running from them. You slow down and allow discomfort to speak to you instead of silencing it with distraction. It could be morning silence. It could be journaling, long walks, or intentional breathing. Stillness is not a lack of movement. It is the presence of purpose. When you stop spinning, when you sit down in yourself and listen, you come home to the unshakable. The more you practice this, the more anchored you become. Your responses change. You no longer react to every emotion, every impulse, every opinion. You begin to live from the center of your own presence. That's where strength grows deepest, not on the battlefield, but in the quiet before it. Chapter 7. Endurance over escape. Pain will come, struggle will knock at your door, and when it does, the temptation to run will follow close behind. But the Stoics taught us to stand firm. They believed in the power of endurance, not because they were masochists, but because they saw endurance as the truest test of the soul. Can you remain standing when everything inside you wants to collapse? Can you breathe through discomfort instead of retreating into distraction or despair? To endure is not to passively suffer. It is to suffer with direction. It is to say, "This hurts, but I will carry it." It is to look pain in the eye and say, "You will not define me." This form of strength is rarely seen because it is rarely chosen. Most people escape into comfort, into numbness, into avoidance. But avoidance is a slow erosion of spirit. Escape is easy. Endurance is sacred. When you choose endurance, you begin to see yourself differently. You start to feel your own capacity stretch, expand, and mature. You recognize that you are capable of withstanding more than you imagined, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. What once would have rattled you now barely moves the surface. You begin to understand that the worst thing isn't pain, it's quitting in the presence of it. Pain, in itself, is not your enemy. Pain is a threshold. It is the place where strength introduces itself. To endure is to remain whole when life tries to break you into pieces. It is to carry weight, not because it's light, but because your soul is heavy with purpose. It is to say, "This will not undo me. I will carry it with grace, with grit, and with unwavering faith in who I'm becoming through it." And the truth is, you build strength by staying through the hard days, through heartbreak, through rejection, through effort that seems to go unseen, through the moments that whisper, "Give up," and you answer, "Not yet." Every time you choose to stay when it's easier to run, you carve out another layer of inner armor. Each test passed is a silent nod to your future self, a message that says, "I can be relied on. I don't retreat when it's hard." You become familiar with the terrain of struggle, and it no longer frightens you. It prepares you. Each time you resist the urge to escape, your endurance deepens. Your foundation roots itself more deeply into the ground. Your patience becomes more powerful, no longer born out of resignation, but forged through will. Your tolerance becomes less about merely surviving suffering and more about becoming intimate with it, understanding its lessons and trusting its purpose. You begin to see discomfort not as a signal to flee, but as a sign that you're on sacred ground, where transformation happens. Your roots grow stronger, anchoring you through winds that once would have blown you away. What once would unravel you now only refines you. You do not just survive, you gain perspective, you gain mastery over your impulses. You learn to stay present in the middle of the storm, knowing that storms pass, and what remains is the soul that refused to bend. You begin to carry the weight, not just because you must, but because you can. And with every storm you endure, you mature, you evolve, you transform, you stretch into a version of yourself that you didn't even know was possible. You emerge not weaker from the toll, but richer from the journey, with a strength no one can see, but everyone can feel. It radiates in your presence, it steadies your voice, and it guides your steps with quiet confidence. This is the reward for staying, a self who is whole, forged, and ready for anything. Chapter 8. The Strength to Let Go. There is a quiet kind of strength that lives in letting go, not the letting go of surrendering your values or abandoning what matters, but the letting go of control, of outcomes, of the illusion that you can shape every detail of life. The Stoics placed their peace in what they could control and let go of what they couldn't. Letting go does not mean apathy, it means trust. It means focusing on your effort and releasing your grip on how things unfold. You show up, you do the work, you stay grounded, and then you let go of how others receive it, how it's perceived, and how it ends. You remain faithful to the process, not the prize. This is where strength takes a deeper form, because clinging is a form of fear. Letting go is an act of power. It's looking at life and saying, "I will meet you where you are. I will not resist you." In that surrender, you become more agile, more adaptable, and ultimately more resilient. You cannot grip what is constantly moving. Trying to cling to every fleeting circumstance, every outcome, every twist in the path is like trying to grasp smoke. It leaves you exhausted, anxious, and scattered. The Stoics knew that life is in perpetual motion, that outcomes shift like tides, and expectations can betray us in an instant. The more we try to control these moving pieces, the more they seem to slip from our hands. What we must hold fast to instead is not the world outside, but the world within. You can only hold fast to who you are, your principles, your intentions, your inner clarity. That's where your foundation lives. That's the ground beneath your feet when everything around you trembles. This is not passivity, it is precision. It is knowing exactly where your power ends and where your peace begins. When you root yourself in character rather than control, in values rather than volatility, you become unshakable. You're no longer tossed by every wind because your anchor is internal. That's the practice. It is the act of returning to your core again and again, especially when the storm rages loudest. That's the power. Not the ability to control everything around you, but the discipline to remain true to everything within you. The more you release the illusion of control, the more fully you claim the strength of grounded presence. And from that space, nothing can move you unless you allow it. Chapter 9. Integrity over image. We live in a world obsessed with appearance, with branding, with perception. But the Stoics taught us to live for something far more solid: integrity. The quiet, unseen commitment to live in alignment with your values, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. True strength is not found in image, but in substance. It's not the curated highlight reel of someone's life or the perfectly worded caption. It's the choices you make when the cameras are off and the room is quiet. It's in how you carry yourself when no one is there to validate you. Anyone can perform strength. Anyone can post about discipline. But living it when no one applauds, that's where real strength lies. It's waking up early when no one sees. It's honoring your commitments when the excitement wears off. It's telling the truth when lying would be easier. It's walking away from comfort because your principles demand it. It's doing the hard thing, not for recognition, but because it's aligned with who you've chosen to be. It's also resisting the impulse to bend when temptation arises. It's saying no when yes would earn you approval. It's choosing growth over gratification, even when growth feels like standing alone. Integrity is that invisible thread that holds you together when circumstances would rather pull you apart. And the more you reinforce it through action, the stronger your foundation becomes. Integrity is the shield that protects you from the chaos of external judgment. It keeps you steady when others waver. It allows you to walk through the world with certainty because you know you are living from truth. It's the armor you wear not to impress, but to protect your inner peace. You don't need to please everyone because you are already aligned with your values. No amount of likes, applause, or admiration can match the feeling of sleeping well at night because you didn't compromise who you are. That peace, the one that greets you when your head hits the pillow, is worth more than all the external validation combined. And over time, this becomes your reputation, not the one the world projects, but the one your soul recognizes. It's not something crafted through marketing or shaped by popularity. It's the quiet respect you earn with yourself when you live in accordance with your truth, when you keep promises even when no one will ever know they were made. It's the courage to stand tall in solitude and the discipline to stay honest when dishonesty would be more convenient. It's the strength to choose the long road of principle over the shortcut of approval. It's the unshakable identity you forge from consistency, honesty, and principle. These are not traits you post about, they're qualities you bleed for. They're built in the silence of your decisions, hammered into place every time you do what's right, not what's easy. Over time, this integrity becomes your spine. It holds you upright when pressure comes. It makes your word trustworthy, your presence stable, and your path clear. You don't need to prove your worth when you're living it. You don't need applause to validate your integrity. You already carry a sense of fulfillment that speaks louder than any praise. The way you carry yourself, the way you act when no one is looking, those are the loudest truths you'll ever speak. They speak through posture, through presence, through peace. You become a person who no longer needs to speak loudly because the integrity of your presence says everything. And in a world chasing attention, your authenticity will always be magnetic. It draws others not because it seeks them, but because it centers itself. It leads not by command, but by example. Chapter 10. Keep showing up. There is no greater power than persistence. Life will ask for your strength again and again. It will knock you down. It will humble you. It will stretch you in ways you didn't think you could survive. There will be seasons where fatigue replaces motivation, where silence follows your greatest efforts, where the reward seems endlessly delayed. And still, your only real task is this: keep showing up. Even when the reasons fade, even when the outcome is uncertain, even when you're the only one who knows what you're enduring. That's what Stoicism teaches at its core. Not perfection, not avoidance of suffering, not control of everything, just presence, just courage, just effort. Show up. Show up with trembling hands if you must, with doubt in your heart, with nothing left but breath and willpower. Keep showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because the act of continuing, of choosing to face the moment again, is what sharpens you. That is the fire where your true self is forged. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to feel strong to act strong. You don't need to wait until everything is aligned or until you feel perfectly ready. Because the truth is, you likely never will. But you can still move forward. You just need to stay in motion, even if it's a single step, even if it's a moment of standing tall when your knees want to buckle, to rise after falling, to try again, and again, and again, even when hope is flickering like a dying flame, to keep showing up even when no one claps, even when the path feels lonely, even when you're unsure if it's leading somewhere meaningful. That is how character is built, not in sudden transformation, but in the repetition of trying, in the consistent decision to say, "Today, I will still move forward." That is how strength becomes unshakable, not in dramatic displays of heroism, but in the daily decision to persist, in the act of choosing to show up when every cell in your body says no, when your mind gives you every excuse to stop, but something deeper urges you to move forward, to choose discipline over distraction, even when the easier option is calling your name with promises of comfort and relief, to choose patience over panic, clarity over confusion, and purpose over pressure, to trust the long path, even when the short one looks inviting, to face the storm again and walk forward anyway, not because it's easy, but because your commitment outweighs your comfort, to keep your head up when all you want to do is hide, to keep your feet moving when doubt clings to your ankles like chains, to pick up the pieces and keep building when no one is helping and no one is watching and the applause never comes. That's what Stoic strength looks like in the real world. It is often unacknowledged, often unseen. It's not always loud. It doesn't always look impressive, but it's real. It's there, in every action, every sacrifice, every quiet refusal to give up. It is the fuel behind every morning you rise despite the weight on your shoulders, every night you rest, knowing you gave all you could. You are stronger than you think, much stronger. There is a depth of power within you that you've only begun to discover. It doesn't always show up in loud, dramatic moments. Often, it's quiet, unassuming, steady like a heartbeat you've forgotten is there. It doesn't demand applause or validation. It simply continues, beneath your doubt, beneath your exhaustion, beneath the voice that questions your worth. There it is, steady, resilient, waiting to be used. It's the whisper that says, keep going when your thoughts are heavy. This strength doesn't flash for attention. It doesn't perform for applause. It stands like a mountain inside you, unmoved by passing storms. It anchors you, even when your mind feels scattered and your heart feels fragile. And like a mountain, it is not formed overnight, but through time, through tension, through the weight of moments that tried to bring you to your knees and failed. It is built through the silent accumulation of days where you didn't quit. A power that does not scream or boast, but stands with patience and conviction. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't clamor for recognition. But it is always there, like bedrock beneath the surface. The deeper you go within yourself, the more clearly you feel it. It speaks in the silence after loss. It emerges in the stillness before decisions. It is that subtle fire you feel when you've been pushed to your limits and yet choose to keep going. It is the energy that carries you through when strength seems spent. And when you reach for it, when you act from it, something changes, not just in your circumstances, but in your sense of self. You rise, not just in action, but in self-respect. You begin to trust yourself. You carry yourself differently. You breathe more deeply. You stop chasing approval and begin standing in truth. You move from trying to prove your worth to quietly knowing it. You find peace in uncertainty and strength in silence. You begin to believe in your own durability, not because everything is easy, but because you've already survived what you once thought would break you. And that memory, that evidence, becomes a flame that lights the way. You begin to see hardship not as a threat, but as an invitation to rise again, to rebuild, to evolve, to come back not as who you were, but as someone new, someone refined, someone with substance forged in adversity. And every time you show up, every time you rise, every time you choose effort over ease, you prove it. To the world, to your future, to the people around you, and most of all, to yourself. Because the more you show up, the more you uncover just how powerful you've been all along. That strength lives in your presence, your focus, your ability to carry yourself with grace in times of great pressure. And with that realization, your presence starts to speak before you do. It moves into a room before you utter a word. People feel it, not in your volume, but in your stillness. It changes the atmosphere. Your life becomes a reflection of your strength, a quiet, resolute testament to your endurance. Not because you're perfect, but because you kept going. Because in a world where it's easier to give in, you chose to stand. You chose resilience over retreat. And that, more than anything, is the measure of unshakable strength. Not just once, but over and over again, until standing becomes your nature and strength becomes your way of life. Until you no longer question your power, because living it has made it undeniable. Because you've not only discovered it, you've become it.